Thank you very, very much. Tonight's story comes all the way from Scotland, and it's called The Stolen Bairn and the Sheep. There was a path that led itself around and yonder, close to a steep cliff that overlooked the sea. And walking down this path were two fairy folk of the She, and as they were walking, they stopped suddenly, for right in front of them there was a bundle, a clothed bundle, right in front of them. Now, a clothed bundle was nothing, but it was moving. The bundle was moving, and mewing sounds were coming from this bundle. They both bent down and tried to shuffle around the bundle and open it up. Oh, sister, do you see what I see? A bairn, a babe, a mortal babe. Well, they looked in one direction and they looked in the other. They looked in front of them on the path. They looked behind them, and there was no one to be seen. And so, sister, you know that if there's no one to claim, this property is ours. And so they both took that bundle of baby and off they walked, even quicker than when they came. Well, at the very same moment, down in the sea, there were two fishermen. And they were off of the rocks and finishing up their fishing when one said, do you see something up there? Do you see what I see? A body up on the cliff. And the other said, no, there's no body up there. It's a large bird is what you see. No, it's not. And he took that tiller and he started aiming it right to the rocks. Don't you go there. You'll break us up into bits if you go over those rocks. No, I'll be careful, but I've got to see who this is. I cannot steer home, and then at supper be eating away thinking that someone is hurt, possibly dying right there, and swallow my food at the same time. Could you? And so they steered and they sailed right to those rocks, and very carefully they were able to lift their boat up over those rocks, and they climbed and climbed and climbed up that steep black cliff. And when they got to the shelf, there she was, a woman, totally unconscious, not moving. They took her very carefully and brought her down and put her in the boat, and off they sailed to their fisher village. And when they arrived, they lifted her very carefully and brought her to the women to help with any type of healing if she is still alive. Well, it was 2 days before she woke, and there didn't seem to be any broken bones. She was dazed. But once she regained her consciousness, the very first thing she begged for was, my bairn! Please, give me my bairn! Where's my babe? Who has my babe? The women, they were drawn back. They had no idea that there was a baby. And they looked at her and said, ma'am, oh, lass, there's no babe with you. Possibly your babe fell into the sea when you fell. No, that can't be, she said. No. I wrapped my bairn up. I wrapped him up well and left him on that trail while I was trying to find water for him. No, my bairn's out there. Well, the fishermen heard this. They had no idea. So they immediately assured her that they would go right back exactly where she had been, and they would find her babe. Well, they did. They took their sails and off they went, many men, and they searched high and low for this wrapped babe in the woods, on the trail, everywhere. They asked people along the trail. No one had seen this bairn. So they went back to tell her the sad news. She was discouraged, but she got up, and when she was well enough, she thanked the fishermen and the fisherwomen for hosting her while she healed. She was strong now, and she left, saying, I will find my bairn, and when I find him, I will bring him back here. For they had fallen in love with her as she had fallen in love with this entire village. And off she went. She went from village to village, to town. Everywhere she asked, did you hear? Did you see? Have you heard stories of a bairn that belongs to no one? And no one had heard of a lost bairn. Well, finally, totally despaired, she came across a camp of gypsies, and she knew that gypsies travel far and wide. Certainly they would have heard somebody talking about her babe. And so when she asked them about a lost child, a baby that couldn't be more than 4 months old. And the gypsies, they looked at their own children and their own babes and said, what we have is ours. But you're welcome to stay with us. And of course, this poor lass, she was so tired. And she had just about given up. And they washed her feet and they let her eat out of their own pot. And they said, stay with us. In a week's time, we'll be heading up north to our own clan. And when we meet with our clan, there is an old wise, we call her our grandmother. She is wise to the world. She knows things that none of us know. She can most certainly help you among all. And so the lass, she stayed with them. And eventually they did reach this clan. And this little old woman with curly gray hair with flowers drawn in there, she couldn't have been more than 4 feet tall. It was as if she knew the story of her. And without a word being said, she could just read this young mother's face. She took her by the arm, and with that wrinkled face and yet caring and loving face, she walked her into their small hut. And she said, sit with me, hold my hand, tell me your story. And just with that calming voice, this young mother told her everything, and she was allowed to cry, she was allowed to laugh over some of the stories, and finally she said, he is all I have. He is all I have. There's no father for him, it's just me. I must find him. And before long, midnight had struck, and at that time the grandmother released her hand and was able to grab some herbs and spices and place those herbs and spices in the fire that was within this little hut. And as the fumes rose and the smoke circled this old gray grandmother, she could read the messages from it. And with tearful eyes, she woke up this young lass. I am sorry. I've read where your son is. He's been stolen by the Sidh, the fairy folk, and you know they're stronger than me. They have spells and I know not, for I'm of the world and they are from far beyond this world. What they have very rarely comes back to any of us. Well, that was it. The young lass said, then I will just lie and die. I have nothing to live for then. And then the grandmother said, no, wait. You are the strongest woman I have ever met, even among my own gypsies. Where there's a will, there's a way. I do know that they are gathering soon. And when they gather, they are to choose a new king for the next 100 years. If your heart can lead the way, maybe you can get into the Sidh and their kingdom and find your son. They won't just let a mortal in, though. You must have something unique, something unusual, for they're not artists themselves. They make nothing. They steal what they don't have, as unique as it can be. Things that are only for them and no one else. If you can find anything like that, you have a chance. Well, the young mother, she thanked her and said, is there a spell, anything you can give me on my journey? And of course, the old grandmother said, I'm only of this earth, but the spell I'm placing on you now will protect you from the earth, will protect you from fire, from wind, from rain, and from the sun. Good luck. And with that, hugs were given. The gypsies all wished her the best, and off she went. She needed something unique, something that they did not have to barter with. Somehow she would have to get into this kingdom, which she knew she would find eventually, but what is it? In all of the stories that she knew and all of the hearings of wonderment, what was it that stuck into her mind? But two things. Two things came out that just seemed to clear the fogginess in her brain. One was a white cloak, the white cloak of Necton. And the other was the golden stringed harp of Rad. Yes, her mind was clear. She knew exactly what she needed to gather, what she needed to create herself. And off she went, right down to where the beach touched touched the sand, and as she walked on those rugged rocks, which should be cutting her feet, for she was barefoot, the rocks did nothing to her feet. She was protected by that spell, and the waves that smacked all around her never touched her. And the sun that beat down on her should have burned her, and yet she was not touched by the sun. She gathered all of the feathers and all of the fluff from all of the birds around, and as she gathered the whites, the different hues of whites, once she placed them all together as if it was one large cloud from the sky, she took strands of her golden hair. And with those strands, she was able to embroider in so beautiful designs all the way around it. There was the ocean itself, and there were leaves and pictures of trees, and the ocean itself, it was beautiful with the glistening sun falling down on it. It was a perfect white cloak, one that no one had seen before. She placed that with the gordy bush right beside there, made sure it would stay. She needed to create a harp. She walked along the ocean's floor where it was shallow, and what she found were these bones that were rolling over and over and over with the sand and the waves, and once she picked them up, they were bleached by the sun. They were perfectly rounded so that she could form and bend into a harp. Animals from the ocean, perfect for her. So she used these bones, and with those strands of her blonde hair, she was able to tie it together and actually create strings with her own hair. And as she played a few of the notes as she was tuning, birds just hovered in the air, listening to the sound of that love that she had, trying to find her own son. She was ready. She took that harp and she took that cloak, and off she went. She let her instincts and her heart guide her. She walked up the tall roads and the short roads, and she walked by day and she walked by night. And she knew eventually she was there. She hid behind a gordy bush just waiting, and sure enough, those she-fairies started walking up. The she-fairies looked like you and I, although possibly taller. The only thing that distinguished them from us were their ears were of pointed characteristics, and their eyes were a bit slanted. But they spoke and they talked, and many of them rushed into an open area of the woods. It was the Sidh. It was their kingdom. So she waited. She waited for that moment, and it arrived. There was only one fairy from the Sidh walking all by herself. And this was her opportunity. She took her cloak and she threw it out onto that trail. And she walked out and she blocked the trail from the fairy she walking in. And the fairy, she looked at her and said, "You are mortal, what are you Before she could even finish her sentence, she saw the most unworldly, most gorgeous cloak she'd ever seen her eyes on. And that fairy wanted it. "Where did you get this?" I want it. And before she could bend down to pick it up, the lass, she picked it up herself. She goes, "Oh, this is not for sale, not for you. I'll give you anything. I've got coins." And she threw out gold coins and threw them onto the cloak. "Now give it to me." "Oh, no, this is not for sale, although I don't mind bartering with you. If you will let me into your kingdom, into the Sidh, I will give you my cloak." Well, with that, the fairy, she grabbed the woman. She said, "Come with me." And they went. Well, the lass held onto that cloak and they went right in there. Everyone noticed, and she said, "Now give me the cloak. It's mine now. Give it to me." And she grabbed it. And the lass just stood there, and then everyone turned and said, A mortal is in here. What is a mortal doing?" And they were coming in to just maul her to pieces, when all of a sudden everyone saw that unbelievable cloak. And they wanted to touch it, and they took all of their attention off of her, but onto this cloak, and so she was welcome to just walk right past each and every one of them. She saw the newly appointed king sitting on his throne, and she walked right up to him and pulled her harp out and held it up to him. Now he saw that she was immortal and said, "Ah, you mortals, I have that harp. I have 1,000 harps like it. Now go on." "Oh, you don't have this harp?" and she plucked one string. And as she plucked it, that note rose and rose and rose with wild love, just encompassing the entire kingdom. Everyone stopped what they were doing. They listened. It was a note they had never heard, a note they all desperately wanted. And so, you have a harp I want. He snapped his finger once. Here, take all of these coins. Thousands upon thousands of coins were tossed upon her. And she said, this harp is not for sale. I want that harp, he said. I'll give you jewels you'd never seen. He snapped twice, and jewels were thrown in front of her. Truly jewels she had never seen. This harp is not for sale. This harp I will trade for a Bairn, my Bairn, that your women folk stole from the trail. It is my babe, not yours. He knew exactly what she was talking about, but no, he wanted to hold on to him. Let me just test your heart first. Here, hand it over, let me she said no, for she knew that once he touched that harp, she was never getting her babe back. No, you give me my Bairn, I'll give you the harp. And with that, the babe was brought in. He could recognize his own mother. Her hands were out. And as soon as she almost grabbed him, it was the king that said, now give me the harp first. And she said, no, you give me my Bairn. So with that, the babe was given to her. The harp was thrown to him, and he started playing the harp, and everyone stopped to listen. No one paid attention to the young mother and her babe. And they walked out of that kingdom. And they walked until they finally got to the fisher village. And for all we know, that harp is still playing. But we do know that she, with her own babe, lived out their days happily with the fisher people. And the gypsies would visit every once in a while. And music was played and stories were told.